We need a Node.js for both Angular and Next.js application. So right now I have Node version of 20. So this is sufficient for me to work on both Angular and Next projects. If you don't have Node.js installed on your computer, you can go to Node.js website and download from here. Okay, once it is downloaded, you can go back and check the version here. Okay, right now I have version 20, so this is sufficient for me to start both Angular and Next.js projects. Let's start creating Angular application. So this is Angular website. To create a new application, we can go for ng new command. So ng new, I'll say ng project, or I'll say ng as an Angular project, and this particular property that we need to give standalone false from Angular 17 version onwards. Okay, otherwise it will consider like a standalone application. So this is how we can create the Angular application. So I just wanted to, for now I'll just keep it to CSS. I don't need server-side rendering. So this is creating Angular project right now. Since Angular is a framework, it will add some basic already whatever the minimal information that we needed, like for routing and for modules and all these things, it will be coming as part of the in a proper structure, and we use the Angular schematics along with this to generate the components or services or anything. Let's wait for it. So Angular project is created. Right now I'm in Angular project. So to start the Angular project, you should run ng-serve. So it will open in 4200 port. Okay, now let's go here, localhost 4200. So this is the basic Angular project that we got. Okay, now let's go to Next.js and create the Next.js project. So to create a Next.js project, we need to use this command. So in the same folder where I have Angular project, I am creating this Next.js project. Okay. So this is a command to create a Next.js. So I'll say nx for Next.js project or invalid project. Okay. Okay, I'll say Next.js. I want to use the TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, SRC, app router, no customization. So we have Next.js application ready. So I'm starting the Next.js application. So npm run dev is the command to run the Next.js application. It will open a 3000 port. So it will run on 3000 port by default. So now let's go to 3000 port. So now we have an Angular application, plain Angular application, plain Next.js application. Okay. Now let me open this code. So now I imported the Angular project to the left, Next.js project to the right in Visual Studio Code. Okay. So as a start, as a first step, let's try to understand the folder structure so that it will be much more easy. So if you see the Angular project, okay, where we have the major file where you see the package.json, okay, in Angular, and on the Next.js we have a package.json, okay. So this is the name of the project, this is the name of the project, and this is a version, okay. And the scripts, whatever the scripts that you are looking at, these are the scripts to run the application. Both Angular also it has scripts to start the Angular application locally. You need to run ngserve or npm run start, or you can say npm run dev. npm run start Angular, npm run dev Next.js application. To build it, npm run build Angular application, npm run build, same for Next.js application. So these are the scripts that we use to run the application or to build the application. Same story with Next.js also. And the next thing is dependencies. Okay, when you look at the dependencies, this is the Next.js application, but it is internally using React. So for that reason, we got React and React DOM because it is majorly of a UI focused framework. And since it is the Next.js, we are using Next.js 14.2.3. And when it comes to the Angular, Angular is a complete framework. So that's why it came up with a core, forms module, router, and all these additional modules. Okay. And if you want to use any additional library like for state management, like Redux, we need to make an entry of that specific library that we want to use within the dependencies here and here in both the applications. Okay. So dev dependencies, these are not mandatory and these are useful for development. So even without these dev dependencies, our application is still, it will still work in production application. Okay. This is the difference between the package.json on both the Next.js and Angular project. So the next piece is, if you see tsconfig and a tsconfig.js. Okay, in these two sides, left side is the Angular project. We will have in tsconfig.js file, we'll have a compiler options. Okay, TypeScript compiler options, like when we start the application or run the application, how this compilation should work. So that is those specific configuration that we added in both same file names in Next.js and Angular, tsconfig.json, tsconfig.json. Okay, if you see the strict mode, if you say strict mode false, it won't force you to look at the TypeScript errors, and you can say strict mode false, it will force you to, it won't alert you for TypeScript errors while writing the code. Okay, these two files are almost similar, and both are, the purpose of these two files is to provide the TypeScript configuration when you actually build the application for the build. Okay. So the next one is package log JSON. Package log we have in both Angular and Next.js. So basically this file, whatever the entries that we have in the package.json, all those entries and exact versions of those will be part of this package log JSON. This is one of the important file. So to have the same dependency versions across develop region, test region, and production, so you should still keep this file and push it to the repository. Otherwise, if you delete it, there is a high possibility for version mismatches in development region, test region, and production. It will create the more problems. Okay, so this is one of the important file. Same goes to Angular. For the remaining files, if you want to know more about the leftover remaining files, you can refer my other YouTube videos that I made on Next.js and Angular for a detailed information. Okay, the next one is, if you see the public, okay, in this public in the Next.js, usually we keep all these static files like images or videos or those type of static content that we usually keep it in the public. The same equivalent for in Angular is assets. Okay, within the src assets folder, in this folder the same static files, images, videos and all the static content will go inside assets folder under src for Angular, and within the Next.js it will directly go to the public folder. Okay, and the next important thing is, so you have a .next .angular here. Okay, when you actually run the application, it will include all the dependencies and everything to run our application in local. It will create this cache. The same thing goes to Next.js also. It is created a cache of the application to run it in your local. Okay, so the next one is node modules. Node modules in both the frameworks. So node modules, whatever the entries that we have as part of the package.json file, all those entries are going to be downloaded when you run the application in your local, and it will be placed inside node_modules file folder, and you can delete this folder and run npm install again. It will again create this particular folder. Okay, and the most important folder is src folder. Okay, in Angular src folder, Next.js also src folder. This is where our actual content, actual component that we are going to write will go into this particular folder. Within this app folder in Angular, everything should go inside app folder. Okay, and here within the src, even the same thing goes to Next.js as well. Okay, but under app, right now under src, there are only couple of files in Next.js. Okay, the first one is the main page. Okay, the page.tsx that is loaded this particular page. Okay, the same equivalent page.tsx in Angular is app component.html. Okay, this is the same content that is displayed on the first page. Okay, so by default Next.js renders page.tsx, and Angular by default it will render app.component.html file. Okay, but when it comes to the difference between Angular and Next.js here is, for Angular we have separate HTML file, separate TypeScript file, separate CSS file. But when it comes to the Next.js, there is only one file where we keep everything. Okay, all the HTML code as well as the JavaScript, TypeScript code and everything will go into the same file. That is the difference. Okay, now let me update the first page of the Angular and Next.js. Let me remove everything. All this content, this total content is not needed. We'll start type coding after we remove everything. Okay, I removed everything from Angular. It is empty right now. And in the Next.js also, I'm removing everything. Okay, now these two are empty. So the Next.js, okay, let me just remove this dark color also from the global CSS. Okay, now it is empty. It is empty. Okay, now let's write the code and understand both Angular and Next.js together. Okay, so one more important file that I need to talk about. So if you want to write the global CSS in Next.js, you have to keep those CSS in globals.css. At the same time, in Angular, if you want to write the global CSS, you need to keep it in styles.css. So these two are equivalent. These are global files. Okay, global CSS. Okay.